you so much. Great intro. Do I need to turn on the mic or can you hear me in the back? Good. In conclusion, all right, thank you for having me. I'm waiting for Jason to show up. Jason is the president of UAT, if you don't know. And I was planning all day long to pull a prank on him that the minute he comes in, you'll see. I'm keeping an eye on him. All right, thank you for coming in. The beauty of today is you're about to see a presentation that has never been seen before. This is the world premiere of this presentation. Michelle, my assistant, helped me bring it up. If there's any technical difficulties, bear with us. We hope that we've tested everything numerous times, and hopefully you'll enjoy what you're about to see. So, the name of the presentation is The Case for an Insured Internet. And essentially, we're going to take you down memory lane in the world of security to show you some things of how did we get here and why we think that the next wave of innovation has to be insured. We're good? All right. We'll start with a laugh. A lot of people don't realize that people who rob banks with guns are dying. Not because they're getting old. It's because you don't need to do that anymore. You can basically sit with a keyboard in a Cybercafe somewhere in the world and do the same thing. Another thing to think about is people who are still doing it this way actually did not come up with technology. This thing really doesn't need the TLC, this clicker. I now understand the warning. All right, hold on. There you go. So, a lot of people ask me, well, how did you start in technology? 22 years ago, I probably was 5 or something. But I learned where the money goes. I once, when I was working at American Express, came to work and asked, when we lose all this money to fraud, where does it go and who's using it? And if you've never thought about it, that's part of what I want to show you. Unfortunately, the money that gets stolen is used for 5 things that are just worse than the money being stolen. As you can see, it goes to narcotics, to weapons and weapons smuggling, to terrorism reasons, to human trafficking, and the worst of all is child exploitation. This is where I volunteer my personal time because children cannot defend themselves. As adults in this world, we should help them. But the most important thing is the money does not go, I'm going to stop using this clicker because it kills my flow. The money does not go to buy gifts for grandma. About 5 years ago, I wrote a white paper called I2, or Internet 2.0, that predicted the E911. Essentially, the point in the paper was, one day we might all experience an event, just like the word 9/11 changed a lot of how we think about security, and in a minute you'll see what expenses as a nation did we add to ourselves as a result of 9/11. Potentially we will have an E911 that will help us all think, okay, the internet is cool for checking cat videos. Looking at you all, are you doing it or not? It's cool for checking what movies are playing, if a restaurant is open. But to move $10 million, or to really assert your identity to pay your taxes, or to log in into a nuclear power plant and claim it's you, maybe it's not the best. So the paper talked about, in case of emergency, break glass and go into this operational plan of building an internet that for the first time will be so secure that you can insure it. Thank God I go to the gym with this clicker. In case you didn't know, this is some of the spending that the United States have gone through, and you see the years before 2001, because it's 9/11, 2001 to be clear, and you can see how in 2001, if we spent about $14 billion on Department of Homeland Security, you roll the tape 10 years and we're spending $43 billion. That is a lot of money that could be used for other things, and as I say, because of 9/11, if I will say, well, we need to increase our budget 3 times on security, a lot of you might have said, no, I think we can use our taxes better. But 9/11 clearly changed our thoughts, and the same probably would be with the E911. Another way to look at this is what happened to the travel industry. So you can see, before 9/11, only 5% of our baggage was scanned, And if you've recently traveled, you know now that 100% of our luggage being scanned and touched and God knows what else. You can see that before 9/11, we had 0 federal flight deck officers. How many people know what that is? Federal flight deck officer? Anyone? Show of hands. I didn't know myself what it meant because it didn't exist before 9/11. After 9/11, a lot of pilots said, well, I want to have a gun in the cockpit so I can protect myself. And those people who are trained, there's about 9,000 of them now, are called the Federal Flight Deck Officers. Think of them as being deputized by the federal government to handle shooting a gun if something happens. The anecdote to that is at least twice guns have misfired in cockpits since then. Nothing happened, the planes landed safely, but it shows you that every security move has some countermeasures. You can also see that if in 2001 we had 33 air marshals, and I'm sure people were asking why do we need so many, now we have thousands because it became apparent and obvious that what we have is not so safe. And the last is the budget. As you can see, the TSA did not have a budget before 2001 because it didn't exist. So there was no budget. And today we're standing at $5 billion a year. Okay, listen. You and I need to be here for the next 40 minutes. And I'm only asking that you'll do your job, which is be clicked when I click you. So this is the last. If you don't do this now, oh my God, everybody can hear that? Sorry. Okay. What's that? No. This is fired. You're fired. I'll be Donald Trump for a second. All right. I just like to walk while I talk, and now I'll be tied here with this thing. Okay, here, it's working. It's just heard that I'm about to fire it. Look how it works now. All right. The current internet, if you were to depict it, is all about convenience. And that's why you see in this triangle where you can put different pegs of what is the importance. It's all about making it easy and simple and fun and cat videos. But that necessarily does not mean that it is secure. If you were to say, I want to have a secure internet, the perfect one will be that it will optimize the security that we need, it will still be convenient, and you'll also have privacy, because we all want to do some things on the internet that we don't need the rest of the world to know, like watch cat videos. But it's impossible to perfect the internet in such a way because you can't be convenient and secure and private at the same time. Let me give you an example. Say that you were my bank and I said, look, I don't want you to know who it is that comes into my bank account because I want to have my privacy. So I'll instruct you to move $1 million and you do it and make sure it's only me when I'm doing it, but I don't want you to know it's me when I come in because I want my privacy. So go ahead. It's kind of impossible. The same thing would be is to say, I want convenience. I don't want to remember usernames or passwords. Or I want convenience, but you guys make it secure, okay? Just make sure no one else gets in there other than me. It's also impossible. So if we wanted to get to the insured internet, which is what this white paper talks about, we have to say, okay, first and foremost, the peg has to be focused on security. Hold on. And then we will optimize as much as we can for convenience and privacy. But you'll have to give something up, just like we had to give something up with the TSA to get a little bit more security in the form of convenience and, God forbid, privacy. By show of hands, how many people have seen the movie The Graduate? Okay. Thank God these three have not, because you're not supposed to see it yet. I promise that the clip I'm about to show is G-rated. It is from the movie The Graduate. It was produced in 1967. And the key segment you're about to see is when the hero, the protagonist of the movie, is getting this advice after he just finished college, and you guys are all going to finish college. What profession should I go into? Let's watch.
I just want to say one word to you. Just one word.
Yes, sir.
Are you listening?
Yes, sir.
Plastics.
Okay. Now, let Let me see how I stop this from auto-playing. I think that's it. Back to the deck. See, we passed hurdle number 1. It all worked, kind of. One word, plastics, as in the future is in it. If you have no other better plans, go into that. You'll make a lot of money. If we were to produce this movie this year, I would say the one word is cybersecurity. If you'd ask what's the one field that is growing exponentially that we're absolutely sure will be needed 5 years from now, maybe plastics are still needed, but it is cybersecurity. I will tell you, my own son is here in the room, and I'm looking at him and say, I have one word for you, cybersecurity. But you can be whatever you want to be. All right. In that paper we talked about, the concept was if the internet will not change its course and speed and we will not add dramatically new security, we will have a breach every week. That was written in 2010, and I can tell you a lot of luminaries, people in the space, thought I was crazy. What do you mean? This slide says what I think is already happening, and I think you read the newspaper like I do. We now have the breach du jour. It happens every day almost, not every week. And if we don't change it, I think the security of the internet will just go down the toilet, and that's a technical term. If you read the news like I do, you'll see that passwords as a static way to be secure are being stolen all the time. If I was a betting man, I would say 99% of the people sitting here, if you do have a static username and password, it is already exposed to somebody if we know it or not. And as you can see, as a result of the Anthem breach, at least 80 million social security numbers, that would be the basic way to steal an identity or open an account in your name, are already in the crook's hands. Let's see if this guy wants to work. What do you know? This is a diagram of the most famous breaches. Now the ones that are in orange color are more famous that you might have heard of, but I specifically want you to see how many others are happening, and they're relevant to the size. So Court Ventures is a company that Experian bought that realized one of their customers that is buying identity about people is a crook. You know all those websites that ask you for your mother's maiden name? Did you live on this street? Did you own this car? Can you imagine a crook just sitting with that database in front of him and just looking it up as if they were you? What could you do with that power? A lot. All this to say is that the attack probability is a function of the incentive. If I were to tell you that this piece of paper is worth $1, how hard would you work to hack it and get it? Not so hard, right? But if this turns into $1 million, or to 10 million bucks, or to a bag of peanuts, joke, the attack probability on this gets higher and higher and higher because you have more and more crime rings who want to get it and will stop at nothing to go there. Let me make my point. Everybody knows Twitter, correct? This is one false tweet on the Associated Press or the AP account. Happened 2 years ago in April. It's a news agency that the rest of the world reads, quotes, and disseminates it. In conclusion, that was for you, Jason. This is one false tweet on the Associated Press Twitter account. There's a lot of traders in Wall Street who are reading the news, New York Times, CNN, AP, to know what to do, right? So if you were a trader in Wall Street and you saw that come on the wire from the Associated Press, what would you do? Buy or sell? Sell. Watch. This is what happened 90 seconds later. 150-point drop in the Dow Jones. Folks, you're looking at $136 billion vanish in 90 seconds. If you know how stock works, you'd know that if you were the Syrian Electronic Army who perpetrated this, if they knew this was coming, couldn't they just short a few stocks, like bet on them going lower and make a ton of money? They could. I'll leave it with you to think how much money a rogue element could do with one false tweet. Why is that happening? This cartoon is almost 20 years old and explains the problem very neatly. On the internet, you just don't know who's on the other end. And neither Twitter or the AP could stop the fact that if you just get the username and password of the account and you can treat whatever you want, you don't know it's a dog. To make this point even clearer, we're going to watch a short movie about Peter the cat. And now we'll check the sound and make it bigger, not like before. I'm better than that. So hold on one second. I'll make it bigger. Check the sound. And here's Peter the cat. All right. A little applause for Peter the cat for educating us. All right. I'm pretty good at this the second time. All right. So, what's the problem? There's a lot of Peters out. Hold on. There's a lot of Peters out there. And they could be in the form of what we call script kiddies, people who are bored at home. Don't be bored at home. And just try to see what if they do this and that to a merchant and steal some money. After they graduate from that, some people join gangs. They're cyber gangs, just like street gangs, but on the internet. And they trade information and they have their bulletin boards. You might have heard of things like Silk Road or other things that basically allow people to do things they shouldn't do. But it goes all the way to nation state. We have countries that have specific departments that their job in life is to go hunt down, crack systems, steal intellectual property. And also, if you heard about the OPM hack of the Office of Personnel Management of our own country, it is not fun to hear that every single federal employee's name, address, phone number, social security has been compromised, including every agent we have placed in every other country. Just think about the impact. So back to why do we need insured internet, is that all these Peters will go do something else or realize that even if they want to take you over, they just simply can't. And here's why. We are not fighting some robot or machine that if we knew what it does and created the cure for it, we would be done. There is no day we will be done. And the reason is we're fighting very creative people who are very well incentivized. Let me give you one statistic to remember. Some of the gangs we're talking about make about $20 billion a year in revenue. How many companies in how many countries have a GDP of $20 billion? So every dollar we let go to that side just makes them better and stronger. Think about it. Why would they stop? Give me the reason why should they stop their operations next year? There is no reason. So unless we will defend better and make it not worth the time, we're asking for it. This is how hackers look at the problem. In their mind's eye, every fraud solution and every security solution has a shelf life. When it's introduced, it's at the height of its effectiveness. Oh my God, we've never seen this before. What are we going to do? Remember those bulletin boards I talked about? They exchange information. It becomes like a puzzle. And of course, many people don't like puzzles. They don't want to think. They'll go do something else. But some people may feel very incentivized or intrigued. And it's enough for one of these guys to crack the code. One, if you don't know, in the hackers community, bragging rights is the currency. They just want to be able to say, I'm the guy who cracked this, because on the bulletin board, you'll get your creds. And now 10,000 people who didn't know how to do it would know. So you only need one person to break something and then publish it for the rest of them to adopt it. As you can see, fraudsters figure out the workaround. Then it becomes mass adoption, so everybody knows how to do this. And the effectiveness of what we did just goes to nothing. So if we were to design a system that is insured, we have to make sure that we keep the effectiveness as high as possible for as long as possible, and clearly add on more things so it will not become common knowledge how to break it. A way to think about it is that cybersecurity, if you were tasked to lead the cybersecurity efforts in your company, is really the art then of defending against the unknown. Some things are what's called zero-day exploits. There are things that no one has seen before, so how can you really devise a system to protect from it? It's an oxymoron or a catch-22. But unfortunately, that's what we're asking the cyber warriors on the front line at every large company to do. Kevin Mitnick, who's one of the world's most famous hackers, said, the milk is already spilled. The data is already out there. That's the second time this is happening. What is it? Everybody saw that? Wow. Okay. The data is out there, and there's no way to get it back. Meaning what? If you'd say, ooh, I want to contain all my customers' data and I want it never to leave my company, tough. The horse is out of the barn, which leaves you now as a risk manager to do one of two things. One, pull out your hair. That explains a lot. And two, accept it. To say, okay, I cannot control that thing, but maybe I can devise a strategy to help myself. Because the alternative is to just shut down your online business and say, this is futile, the game is over, that's it, we're done. When you come in the morning to defend one of the largest banks, the battle looks like this. You have yourself, you have your customers, and also on the same playing field as the internet, you have the fraudsters. Think about it as a three-way chess game, and let me explain why that is so difficult to play. If I was the bank and I wrote an email to all of you, hey, listen, we saw some suspicious activity on your account. We want you to call us so we can have a conversation and verify. That would be a normal thing to do, right? But on the same channel, in conclusion, that's how it works. In the same channel of email, the bad guys, because they're on the same surface as you, can also send an email to all your customers and say, hey, something is suspicious with your account. We want to have a conversation with you. And it will go something along the lines as, hey, we want to make sure it's you. Could you give me your account number and your password so I know it's you? And therein lies the rub. Because we can't tell, just like with Peter the cat, who's who in the zoo, we don't know who's on the other end, the bad guys can also move the chess pieces for you. So it's not as obvious as just playing against two people. Now you have three folks moving it. How many people have read the book, The Art of War? Cool. Highly recommend it if you go into the area of security or cybersecurity. In the book that was written about 3,000 years ago, how about 2,500 years ago, you see Sun Tzu tell us about learning our enemy as a way to do a great job in security. He says if you know the enemy and you know yourself, so you know both sides' capabilities, you should not fear the results of 100 battles, as in I'll know every time what's going to happen. He says if you just know yourself, but you don't know what the enemy can do, it's a 50-50 chance. He says for every victory, you'll also have a defeat. And he says if you don't know your enemy or yourself, you're going to lose every single time. But don't trust me because I said so. I have a better ambassador to prove that this is true and correct. And we will absolutely move on with Sun Tzu and say, yep, that is exactly how it is. I'm talking to you about all these crimes because as Western civilization raises up the next generation with us in it, we're not taught to cheat and deceive and think outside the box and break stuff. I would argue one of the greatest talents you can learn to be great at security is to think that way. Because in order to be a great hacker, a tinkerer, you have to think, how would I break this? How would I go around it? And if you can think something, you should operate under the assumption that the bad guys are already doing it. You should not say to yourself, oh, I just thought of something. Well, maybe no one will think about it and I'll be safe. No, 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 no. If you can think it, someone is already doing it and profiting from it. And for that reason, we should always keep thinking, what is the other guy doing, and almost play chess with ourselves. To exemplify this, I brought here, and Jason, what I said at the beginning, that this deck has never been shown anywhere. This is the world premiere. So I want a plaque outside somewhere that says, this is the place where, okay, maybe 10 years from now. The example I'm going to show you is how crooks do what they do. And not all of it has to do with technology. It allows the people on the good side that are defending from fraud to also think and find them out. What you're about to see is a set of slides that were given to us courtesy of a company called Neiman Marcus. How many people shop at Neiman Marcus? Come see me later. Neiman Marcus is a luxury good provider. Some of their orders are for $20,000 online, which is unheard of. Most orders online are between 50 and 75 bucks. And the team at Neiman Marcus one day received a call from a gentleman who bought about $16,000, as you can see the price on top, worth of stuff. Coming in, coming in. No, take your time. That's okay. As you can see, $16,000 worth of things that were shipped to this house in Jacksonville. And the gentleman said, I never got those things. So please take off the charges from my credit card. The team at Neiman Marcus went online, looked at this address, and it so happens that this house is for sale. And some house listings have this thing called a virtual tour. You can see what's inside the house, you know, to see if it's for you or not. Let's take some time to see that this chandelier appears in the catalog of Neiman Marcus. And on the right, you'll see a picture inside the house with this chandelier hanging from the ceiling. This rug appears in the Neiman Marcus catalog, and in the virtual tour, you see it in this room. Should I keep going? Mirror, right there. I won't question the taste of this gentleman, but that chandelier is right there. These lamps were seen in the virtual right there. And as you can see, with a little bit of sleuth work, use the fact that this is a virtual tour inside the house. It was kind of difficult for the guy to explain how did he say he didn't get these things. Folks, if you don't defend from such people, the Peters of the world, they'll eat your lunch. Okay. My next segment is called The Price of Shame. In my career, I had the privilege or not, you can decide, to listen to people who were victimized and what happened to them. And many people don't go to the police the first time they get victimized. They think it will go away, it will never happen again. And you usually meet them when it's the second time, when they realize the guys who are holding ransom their data are not fair, Like, why would you think they were fair to begin with? But that's okay. So you paid them once, and then they came to you again. Okay, we want some more money for this. I'm like, oh my God, I should go to the police now. No, you should have come before. My point is, if we were to measure how much fraud is happening and how much money is stolen, how many identities are stolen, my bet is that more of it is going on that we know of because people are just not raising their hand and say, yeah, I kind of did that, but I shouldn't. Should I prove it to you? By show of hands here, how many people here think that customers pick strong passwords? You know, long letters, numbers, special characters. How many? Please raise your hand if you think they pick good customers. No? No one? Let's take a look. After the RockU breach, for the first time in history, we could decrypt the most common passwords. There.
This looks like mine.
So why didn't you raise your hand? If you were a crook and you knew that, what would you do with this information? Sell it as one. Try it. Do you know why? Let me show you why. Most security systems assume that you're going to let your customer guess a password like what, 3 times before you lock them out? So as Western people, honest people, we think, okay, come on, you don't know the password, I'll give you 3 tries and then you're out, right? But if you know what the most common ones are, why wouldn't you just try the top one on every single account once? That would not raise any alarms. How many doors do you think you'll open with that one attempt on all of the accounts? How's 18% for you? In the UK, a country that loves soccer, the #1 password is Liverpool. Now, if you were a bank, you could limit people from, you can't pick that because 9 million other people have picked that. But now you get into a new problem. I'm not going to remember my password because I didn't pick it. Remember that triangle of security and convenience? They're at odds. But this is what crooks do. All they need to know is what are the common ones. And they go with that one and just opens as many doors as they can. This part of the presentation we've never done ever, so bear with me. We're going to ask you a real question, and in a minute you can go to the internet and vote, because I'm going to ask for another show of hands. How many people here, if you walked outside of UAT and found a USB drive on the floor, would pick it up and be curious kind of to see what's on it? Could you raise your hand if you're that person? One, honest, 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 honest. The rest of you are also honest, but not as much. Not as much. It's a technical term. How about now you can point your browsers, open your phones, open your tablets. We'll give you a second. Go to trusona.com/S, S is for survey, and vote. Not when you raise your hand and you don't want your friends to know, oh, he's the idiot who's going to pick it up. Just tell us, really, would you try it? Would you care to see what's on it? In conclusion, now we're taking a survey of how many people who would go outside to the parking lot and found a USB stick would stick it to see what was on it. And it's a little survey at trusona.com/S, S for survey. I'll say it again, we've never done this before. This is our first live poll. In a minute, we're going to go and show everybody the results.
Some of us are elderly and we take a long time.
Yeah, you see, I'm not showing the results yet. Not showing the results yet.
Well, hold on.
Yes, take your time. I'm also gauging how much time do we need for this. Nice digs you have here. Really good. Okay, just by show of hands, how many people need more time? Of course, you would not stick the USB, but how many people need more time? A few more seconds? Excellent. So let's go check the results. Drum roll, please. Okay. It is working. Wow, look at that. So 10 people said yes, 9 people said no, and 2 said maybe. I count maybes as yes. Sorry, I didn't say that before. Okay, why am I showing you this? Because just like Peter the cat can be the person who's pretending to be your customer, curiosity also kills the cat. If I was a hacker and I wanted to get into UAT's network, I just told you what would be my number one method to get in there. You would be my helpers. I would go to the parking lot and throw at random 10 USB sticks with my malware on it. I'll sit outside in my car, hopefully within range to the Wi-Fi, wait for one of you to, ooh, let's see what's on that. Game over. Once you are an authenticated user within the UAT network, and I could communicate with your computer, tunnel into it through the malware just sitting there to connect to me in the parking lot, I can do pretty much whatever I want. And for that reason, even if we will have the most secure internet, insured, all the technology would be perfect, the next step is to secure the cats. We're going to be curious who you can use. No, it was great dancing music. Good. Even if we do that, the last mile is with human beings, and it's called social engineering. So I would not be doing my job if it would not leave you today with a free tip of what can I do. You scared the something out of us. It's a technical term. I want you to learn from this guy. How many people know who Matt Honan is? Raise your hand. Cool. How many people know what Wired magazine is? Cool. So Wired magazine has a staff writer who writes about security. And one day a group of hackers wanted to show him how insecure he is. And please go read his story about what happened to him in 1 hour, because he uses the same password in a lot of different places. I'm not going to ask by show of hands how many people do this. I think I know. And because of it, and because of the reset password processes we have today on the internet, everything he owns was taken from him in 1 hour. So if there's one thing you can do without any fancy stuff and technology and firewalls, change your passwords. And let me prove it to you why it will be probably the most effective way to fight cybercrime. Because even while you're sitting here listening to me talk, someone stole in a breach all of your passwords, and they're going to sell them tomorrow in the black market. If you change your password, whatever they stole becomes what? Useless. And we want that to happen. So I didn't say every hour to do it. I didn't even say once a day. You pick the time that makes sense to you, but you know that whenever you change your passwords, every password that you used before that is just useless to the bad guys. And there, just like you could be the weakest link, including me, with social engineering, you can also become the strongest link just by doing one thing that costs no one anything. My last slide is about why the insured internet. I so far hopefully explained the reasons that we need it as a society. But what will happen if we achieve that goal? If we do that, we have created a safer internet and therefore shed light on the darkest corners. And if we do that, and we know that people cannot be trafficked on the internet, children cannot be just exploited, we have basically created something that will curb the funding of evil. And a note to myself, if I ever revise this deck, is evil is done when good men and women simply do nothing. Thank you for your time. We'll now take questions and answers. Thank you. right. I guess my first question is, can we get a better clicker for next time?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I do have some very good passwords, but some are weak. And I don't know a good strategy to effectively put into place to change my password so I don't have to sit down and get frustrated every
Yes.
time I'm changing it.
Okay, so just for the record, I paid her $20 to say that because this is, if I would wish for a question, it would be this one. So let me share an idea in the labs of Trusona on you right now and see if that will give you a great strategy. All of you are invited to listen. We are struggling with the same thing. How does one make a password that is not so long that it's hard to remember and also type on a mobile phone, right? That Apple keyboard drives me nuts. I say to say hi to my wife. It says something else. Trust me. And how do we do it in a way that we can remember it? Because if I'll give you 7, X, Y, P, lowercase, it's like a computer can remember it easily. We can't. So here's an idea to run on you. What if you started with a story that has 4 parts? And I'm just ad-libbing it. The first part would be a number. So pick a number between 1 and 10. 7. Now pick an animal, your favorite animal.
Black golden doodle.
No, I have a golden doodle at home. He's not black though. Do you want him?
Well, maybe mine's 12 years
I use the stage for things I can actually use. Okay, so let's just do black dog, just to make it simple. Pick a verb, eating, sleep. What does the dog like to do all the time? Mine is licking, just so you know. Do you want him still?
I don't want to say it out loud, but
Yeah, just pick something else, G-rated.
watching.
Watching, good. So we had 7 dogs watching. Now pick your favorite city in the world.
Probably Berlin.
Berlin. 7 dogs watching Berlin. Let's do an experiment. Tomorrow, when you're at home, see if 24 hours you would remember that combination that we just created here randomly. And if you can relate to 7 dogs watching Berlin, now try to make a password out of that. And it could be as long as 7 dogs watching Berlin, which I'll tell you is long, is not in any dictionary, and no hacker can just guess. You can make it 7 D for dog, W watching, and then Berlin, or just be, you can make it as short as 4 letters, like, right, and a number, and you are the master. You can decide how to do it, but every single one of them would lead you to that phrase that you have created. And you can change your phrases.
So the strategy is very similar to when you meet someone and you form a story or an image in your mind and take it away to remember that moment when you meet someone.
Yeah, I don't know that's everybody's strategy, but it is yours, and thank you for that.
It's a very famous strategy.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, remember.
I'm joking, but yes, you need to make it relatable to you and not in any dictionary. People who use the word love or God or Liverpool are basically asking for it because you're picking something that is so guessable that you don't even need to be a crook to know it. But the 7 dogs watching Berlin, which now will haunt me for the rest of my life, is nowhere. I promise you, nobody has picked that password yet you can remember it again and again and again. And that's how I do market research live. Any other questions?
You talked about like programs that supposedly like randomly generate passwords and stuff like that.
Yeah. So let's take LastPass. It's awesome. Period. Only when you need it and it doesn't work, then it's so not awesome. So if you were guaranteed, by the way,
Dogs watching Berlin.
you see? If you were guaranteed, me included, that on every platform in every place, including that hotel that I've never been on, I'll remember my password, man, that's awesome. Because of that, it's hard. Because now you need to have a password wallet. And to protect that, you need a what? Oof, a password. Can you imagine if somebody takes your password wallet and open it? That's it. They have the keys to your entire kingdom. In conclusion, sorry. Any other questions? So yes, love those things, but unfortunately they're not as ubiquitous as one would hope. Yes.
So about like the Target hack, is there any way you can prevent yourself when you're shopping at like a retail establishment?
I wish I'd have better news. No. But the example I'll give you is if you've seen in the ocean a ball of herring, there's many of them. If you're a shark and you're trying to eat one, it's very confusing which one to go after. And you should take that as your comfort. If you are among the 30 million people you now have a 1 in 30 million chance of being victimized. I shop too. But if we will all stop shopping, the bad guys won. That's the reality. So we have to keep doing what we're doing, but protect the systems from being, and that's why we need the insured internet.
So if someone has your information like the target hack, they didn't necessarily do anything with it?
That's right. These things are stale, they're sold by the bucket load. It's just that you have 24 hours a day to do something with it. You can't just automatically use 30 million cards somewhere. It just doesn't work. They're sold to other criminals who are operators and they do something, and you might be there or not. Let's just say that your card expires. Is it time?
Almost.
I'm just answering questions here now.
Yeah, you're good.
All I'm saying is if your card expires in 9 months, and now 9 months have passed, they can't sell that anymore. So it's just nature, it's just like shelf life. All right, thank you so much for the opportunity. Much appreciated. Thank you.